Hi, I'm Lucia, and I'm here to talk with you today about art quilts and to show you my process. I'm really excited to show you what it is that I do as I create my art quilts. And before we start, I wanted to thank my daughter Marina, who is kindly filming this whole sequence for us today. So I wanted to start with showing you how I choose a theme. And I'll sometimes I'll have an idea in my head, or I'll have something I'm journaling about, or something like a recurring dream. And as I'm coming across my fabric when I'm working on different projects, I just start pulling pieces of fabric that are speaking to that, or colors, and I start putting them up on my design wall. So whatever process works for you to pick a theme, or to even just start with a grain of a theme, that works. So I'm just going to show you over here a couple of things that I'm starting with. My daughter is turned 21, and so I'm putting together like a memory art quilt kind of thing. And still, it's more of an idea in my head right now, but I know we both love Frida, and we love this Frida fabric, and my daughter has done a lot of artwork around Frida. So I think I'm going to be asking her to also do like a pastel drawing or something, or an embroidery on top of whatever this comes to be. But you can see, so I have my focus fabric here, and then I've just been pulling fabrics that are complementary colors to this, and then also that are meaningful to us. And like, we love birds, and here's some little owls. And this embroidery I did on my machine, and something that I knit here. And from this, I know it looks chaotic now, but you'll see the process and how it comes together as a quilt. Okay? Now this is another art quilt that is still in the like design phase. This is something I've been pulling fabric for a long time, although there's not much fabric here. But I saw this one, and I knew this would be, this is going to be probably the focus center fabric, and then this is going to play a lot in the borders, and then these will play also. But what this one is about is when we had and we still have all these youth coming over our borders, and the way they were treated so inhumanely and given these aluminum blankets, and not given schooling, and they should have been learning and playing, and that was not happening. Instead, they were subjected to a lot of trauma and anxiety. So this is something that I'm still working on. And then here's one that's just, I love birds. So this is a simpler one, I guess we could say, but I've already started. You can see here's this focused Mia Charo fabric, and then I have the fabrics that I'm pulling, and that's something that I can just work on, fun and relaxing. Now we're moving on to actually putting the piece together. So here's a focus fabric that I have, and this is that Abrazo de Amor, that Frida fabric. And I already have one segment sewed on here. Let me go back here, because you can see I've chose some colors that are in the focus fabric, and I'm going to be using them for my borders for the Crazy Log Cabin. And Crazy Log Cabin, it's actually, which log cabin pattern is, you just sew a piece of fabric here, and then you'll sew another piece of fabric here, and another piece, and another piece, and you keep going around and around like a log cabin. Usually each piece of fabric that you sew on is like a uniform size, so you end up with like a uniform block. But since this is Crazy Log Cabin, what we do is, you can see I already sewed this piece on. I just used 1/4 inch stitch, and sometimes I press immediately and sometimes I don't. Of course, I always press when it is apparent that I absolutely need to, because that's what gives you a good, a nice looking finished product. But first, we don't have to be perfect because it's Crazy Log Cabin. First, I would cut this off and cut this end off, and then I'm going to want to put it at an angle. So this is where it's like fun. So you can see I'm not even measuring or anything. I just want to make sure I have a corner there, and I have some length left so I can sew on the next piece of fabric. but the wider the angle, the better, the more fun it is. Okay, so there, and then I'll go over here to this side. So now I'm going to sew this piece here, and it's a little big. So I'm just going to go like this, and then we'll go over to the machine. It's my industrial machine, so it's a little loud. And I just line up the edges, raw edge to raw edge, and then I'm just going to sew. And I don't do a back stitch at the beginning or anything, because I don't need to, because I'm going to keep sewing over the seams as I go. Cut it off. And then I come here, and for right now I'll finger press. It really depends on my mood. Sometimes I really want to press each time with an iron, or other times I'll just finger press. Then we come back over here. And you can see I have this angle going here already that we made on our first step, so I want to continue that angle. So I just line the ruler up there along that angle, and then it's jutting into there. So we just cut like that. And so you see now I have a longer angle, and then I'm going to want to make an angle here. So you can do it as you like. If you want wider up here or wider down here, it really doesn't matter. But I kind of like to do opposites. So we have wide here, so now I'm going to go narrow down here, and wider up here. And I cut. See? And then, and what you always want to do is, actually, that it doesn't matter, but I'm thinking of people have asked me, like, do I always need to keep this straight as I'm sewing? You really don't, because what makes it even more fun is in the end, it's going to be like at some odd angle, but you square it all up. And so then you'll square it up with this will be centered, and then all your pieces at the wacky angles look even more interesting. Like, I can show you samples here. That's what I'm looking at. Like here, you see that here's the center, but you see how kind of very angly these angles got. And then also with the Virgen over here, you can see just in, actually these are just the center ones got really interesting. So that's how we put it together. And then I would just, once I had all the reds, and I like that setup right there, then I like the orangish reddish here, so I would probably start auditioning fabrics like, yeah, I like that, and I'd give it a try. And if it doesn't work out, you can cut it so just a little bit is showing, or you can just cut that part off. It doesn't matter. You just keep going. So now I'm going to show you how I usually do the backing. It's not always like this. It depends on my mood or an idea or another piece of art that I've seen. And I say, hey, I'm going to try that. But this is what I usually do. Here's a finished, well, it's finished for these purposes. It's a finished block of Nada vale más que la risa y el desprecio. And that's from the Vida fabric. So for a backing, we know for my backing for my art quilts, it's usually becomes my binding also. So we know our binding, let's say, we want it to be something that's picking up the colors in the center fabric, but then that's also darker because that forms like a frame around it, and your eye stops there. Your eye stops at the binding and goes back into the center, which is what we want. So I was thinking, I actually did like this, then because it's just bright and fun, but I realized it's just a little too light. But I mean, depending on my mood and if I wanted to add other embellishments, I might use that. But for today, I would just, let's just say I'm just going to use this. So I cut my backing piece pretty big because I'll show you in a minute what I'm going to be doing. But here's some pretend batting. So I didn't want to cut a bigger piece right now. My batting is way up high. But here's our batting. and we would have a piece of batting that's big enough for the whole thing, and we'd have it coming out. I like to have it come out at least an inch on each side, okay? And then I would quilt, and by just basic quilting on my machine, I just would stitch in the ditch here just to get the piece down, and I might do a stitch in the ditch here and a stitch in the ditch here. Right now I'm not doing that much of the decorative quilting, although you can if you want, okay? But just showing you for my technique for making the binding. So this is going to be a pretty thick one. I'll come out like an inch from the batting. Usually I have it stick up like a 1/4 inch, but right now I'm doing it a 1/2 inch, and that's fine because it'll just fold over and make a more firm binding. And then I come out an inch from that, and it doesn't have to be exact at all. It's just like whatever works, okay? So, and then what I do is I fold the binding to meet, the backing to meet I fold the backing to meet the batting, and then I come down a little bit further, and you can just sew like that. You just do your stitch right there. Or you can fold it, if you want it smaller, you just fold it smaller or cut the batting smaller. And you would just sew all the way across, and then the same thing happens for each side. So you would just sew to here, and then you would have this cut to your 1 inch, and you would fold. Let me see. Let's pretend that's cut 1 inch. And we fold and we fold. So you would just sew to here, pivot, and then I do a little back stitch there, and then come around and do that here. And sometimes it ends up a little wonky, just because it's not our standard traditional way that we're doing our binding. But that's fine. When it comes out a little wonky, you can camouflage it and fix it when you're doing your embellishments, which is another part of the fun. Okay? Okay, so now I'm going to show you the way I embellish. And I encourage you to do whatever it is that you like to do, any kind of handwork or things that you collect, buttons, beads, milagros, found objects, shells, anything. You can just apply it to your quilt. But you see, I had these little felt circles from something, and I thought, I think I'm going to try and make these into little flowers. So I just have my embroidery thread that I've already started, and I'm just sewing right here and coming back to the center each time. And I'm not going through all the layers of the fabric. I just do it into the batting and the top layer. So that's that. And then, oops. When I finish, probably what I'll do in the center is I'll do French knots. So that's that one. I'll rethread that later. Put that here. And I have another one, so I might do this here, or I don't know, I'll think about it. Then I also have these leaves, which I would just tie on. And so the way I would do that is I would thread my needle again, and I just pull the needle through. I don't tie a knot, and I just would put it in one end and then pull it through. So I would have my thread would be like this, and then I would just tie a knot, which I can show you here on these buttons. You see, that's what we did here. I just pulled the embroidery thread through and tied knots. Okay, so I would do that, and then I would do the same with this up here. So I see I have that, and then I would get my pastels. And actually, at the pastels, I try to save that until I'm like done with all the machine quilting, because they get on your hands and stuff like that. But I don't always wait until I'm done with all the machine quilting. Sometimes I just jump right in, and it's fine if you do. So I think here I would start going something like this. And actually these are fabric pastels, which I've never used. I usually just use regular pastel medium, but I thought why not? Because this you can iron on and it'll become permanent. So I just thought I might start doing something like this. I like this coming out of the corners. And I pulled the colors that are either in the quilt or complementary to the quilt. So I just start going like that. And sometimes if my quilt is too light colored and I need to add more dark, pastels are a great way to do that. Or if I need to add more light. So this is just a starting point. And as I told you when I did the intro in our last meeting, I look at these things through my phone. I take pictures and I look at it, and then when my phone's editing app or whatever it's called, I just draw on it, and then I get more ideas. So it's just a start and just to show you. And this is, like I said, it's just a start. I would certainly be adding more. And then I put these up on my design wall and I look at them over the course of weeks or days or however much time I have. But I wanted to show you that. Okay. Oh, and then this I found in my grandmother's things. It's a hand crochet doily. So either my grandmother did it or one of her friends did. And I have Wonder Under or some kind of fixative on it. And so I was thinking I would like to put that right there. So I would just cut this. Again, I'm not being perfect because it's okay. And I would take that needle out, of course. And then I would peel the backing. And you can see the adhesive here. And then iron it on with the steam iron. And that's with Wonder Under or whatever fusible that you like to use. And with more embellishing or adding our layers to our art quilt, you can see this. I have my Crazy Log Cabin here with the center and then the asymmetric fabric pieces on each side. This one is not asymmetric, but that's okay. And then I did some beading down here. And actually, oh, this was just a little beading, like a little trim piece I had. And I was saving it because it was pretty, and then I just sewed it on. As simple as that. But I'm thinking this is what I'm going to do with this. I might put one of these flowers that I knit right there. And then I want to get, I have this thing, like I have a thing about flowers, I have a thing about hands. So I'm probably going to ask my daughter Marina to let me trace her hand here. And I will put some Wonder under the fabric. I'll apply it to the fabric, and I will get her outline of her hand. I'll cut it out, and I will probably put it over here. But I'm not positive. You know, I will play around with it. And then I like to embellish the hands. Like if you saw in the intro PowerPoint from last month, and in some previous show and tells, like when I do a hand, I draw all over the hand, and I just use these fabric or archival quality pens, but you can use whatever it is that you have. And I literally just do like little sketches and faces and things like that, and if it doesn't turn out perfect, it doesn't matter. You can just morph it into something else or embroider it into something else. So thank you for joining me with our quilt workshop. And let me know what your comments or thoughts or questions are. And thank you, Marina, for filming. And have fun, be adventurous, be daring. Have a good day.